Welcome to the New Monks. This podcast is dedicated to those of us on the journey of evolution. Through these episodes, we will dive into the lives of individual people and discover what they have learnt and how they have handled their growth. We believe that we all have wisdom to be shared with each other and can learn from listening to each other's stories. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and Apple Podcasts, Spotify. If you feel like leaving us a review and sharing the love, that would be greatly appreciated. So this is just a heads up because, there's a lot of information that is coming to light at the moment, and through these episodes, each person is going to share a different side of that for them. Now, this isn't to say that every single thing that is shared here is going to be 100% accurate, It's just not where we are right now. It's just not the case of the unraveling and the disclosures that are being revealed to us. Obviously, things are always changing, and in one moment something can be so real and so true, and the next moment is completely shifted and changed into something else. This is the journey of evolution. This is the journey of ascension that we are going through right now. So this is just an invitation that your discernment is really, really important. As always, as usual, please take what resonates and leave the rest. Thank you. Welcome back to the New Monks podcast. In today's episode, I'm speaking to Joanna, who I've actually wanted to speak to for a while now, but because she has her own family now and has two little ones, it's been quite difficult to find the right time. But we managed to find it, and this episode really is just about family, and she shares her experience of what she was looking for in a partner before they met, and then finding it and just creating the life that she wants to live, and most especially about her two home births that she had, where it was just her and her partner in the room. So really that was the focus of this episode. It's quite a different one in the series, as it's really just about being a mother and giving birth. So hello and welcome, Joanna, to the New Monks podcast. So great to finally talk to you, because we've been speaking about this for quite a little while. And but I really wanted to talk to you about your birth stories, because when we met that time last year, was it? Last summer. Yeah, you told me a little bit, and I was just like, wow, this sounds amazing. And then, as you were saying as well, it's important to share positive stories, But before we begin anyway, what I like to do is just take a few deep breaths in and out. And then just tell us how you're feeling right now.
Right now, I'm feeling really grateful that you've invited me to talk about such an important subject, such an amazing experience that I've had. And yeah, I'm just really grateful that you've invited me to talk about this.
Thank you. I'm so happy as well that you're willing to share the story, I feel like this the home birthing is becoming a lot more popular now these days.
Definitely. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, especially after what we've experienced over these recent years. I think that's been a massive catalyst for a lot of people, just to say, actually, no, I'm good. I'm going to try and do it on my own.
Why do you think that that has happened? I feel like that maybe that is true. I mean, I've definitely become more aware of it.
Well, I think that I mean, this is an assumption,
Yeah.
but I feel like just everything that went down with the pandemic and with COVID, and actually how much people I think we're seeing more and more the control that
That is so
that
cute.
the control.
Aww.
And it's just like a question of our own sovereignty, isn't it?
Yeah.
Our own sovereignty over our own health, our own bodies, our own decisions when it comes to our own lives.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it was just a crazy time to be giving birth for a lot of people, and just giving birth in the hospital setting anyway is like, it's really challenging. And more people I think it's with the shift of consciousness that's happening, where people are asking to be more in community and more connected to the earth, more connected to ourselves, remembering our true nature, what we really are capable of. And birth is like, for me, it embodies life fully, and how we can trust in life and our own physical, spiritual, emotional ability. Yeah, I think that there's many families like my family that are making that to give birth, in the most natural way with their families, where they feel safe, where they feel comfortable, you know.
Yeah, totally.
So it's like a recognition.
So when was you have had 2 home births now, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And when was the first one?
So the first birth was to my first daughter, Zion, and she was born in 2020 in April. So it was like 1 month into the pandemic.
Wow.
Mm.
And was that in the UK?
That was in London, yeah. We were traveling in Brazil before that while I was pregnant. I was here actually in the same area of Brazil when I was 7 months pregnant. And we went back to London because I wanted to be close to my mum.
Okay.
So and that's like another side of the story. But yeah, that's why I was there. That's why we gave birth in London.
So yeah, your partner is from Brazil, right? That's why you were there.
Yeah. That's our connection. Yeah. I never imagined that I would have a connection with Brazil. Never. I never even had that inkling. Yeah.
Wow.
And somehow I'm here, I've moved country, I'm learning Portuguese,
Wow.
I have extended Brazilian family, I'm learning about the culture here, and songs and
Wow.
that. Yeah.
That's so amazing. So before you met as well, what was your like, where were you in your life? Did you already consider this home birthing kind of situation? How did you kind of get to that space?
Yeah, good question. So specifically about my relationship with birth. So before this relationship, before Tiago and I, we became a relationship. I I had already started researching into birth. I was reading about birth. I joined a group called Bed Tent Doulas, and I was on the journey to learning about birth with the idea to become a doula.
Oh wow, okay.
So that's a nice book. And just a, some backstory. So my mother gave birth to my brother and I through cesarean section,
Wow.
and yeah, for both of us, and that was in the Philippines. And some of the stories that she told me about her experience, it didn't quite add up you know, that my mum was told from my brother, who was her first child, that his head was too big to fit through the pelvis. That's why she had a cesarean section. And when I heard that, I just, you know, this was from a young age. So like, that doesn't sound right to me. Like, why would the body create a, a being that was the wrong shape and size to be able to naturally come out? You know, it just was like, that doesn't make sense to me. And then a number of things that I, you know, about my mom's experience. My mom didn't have, like, she didn't have a particularly, like, she didn't have a negative experience. It just was her experience. But when I started learning more about birth, I just felt, I feel like my mom and I were kind of, with that opportunity for a natural vaginal birth was taken away from us, because I was learning about all the benefits of, you know, a natural birth. Just even just, you know, when a baby's born, the fluid of the lungs to be pushed out during labor, you know, all of the natural orchestra of hormones, like all of those things. And so, and also at that time, like some years before Tiago and I connected, I was also sitting in ceremonies. And along the way, I got the opportunity to sit with a woman who was, her name is Tikarina. She's a wife of one of the roadmen that I used to sit with. And yeah, she really inspires me. She'd given birth to her 3 sons. Like I haven't really heard much about her story, but what I did hear was that she gave birth to her 3 sons, all in Temescal, so very, very quiet. Yeah, and then I remember sitting in ceremony with her for 2 nights, and she just really inspired me, you know, the way she was speaking about life and families and yeah, and that was kind of my catalyst to go on.
You said she gave birth in the Temescal. Is that what you said?
Yeah, she gave birth, exactly, yeah. Do you know, have you sat in Temescal's in the sweat lodge?
In the sweat lodge, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. And that's part of her culture, part of her traditional way, yeah. I mean, I don't think they don't make it as like as hot as in some of the I don't know actually. I know very little about it. I haven't yet had the opportunity to speak to her about it. But yeah, she just inspires me to aim to be connected more and learn more about birth.
Yeah.
That's where I was before Tiago and I had met.
Yeah, interesting. And so you said is your mom from the Philippines?
She is, yeah.
I totally didn't know that. Love it. And your dad?
Yeah, my mom's English.
Okay.
Wow. Yeah.
So and then what about before? So you were obviously found your way to the plant medicine ceremonies and everything, right? As well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So were you?
Yeah, but it's interesting though on that.
Yeah.
Because I was sitting in ceremonies for like quite a few years. And then when Tiago and when we connected, I invited him to one ceremony with me. That was the first time I'd ever brought, you know, a partner to ceremony. And in that ceremony, like I really sort of, what was coming through to me was that in these ceremonies, I was learning more and more of how to, you know, take responsibility for myself, be aware of the way I'm walking, ceremony, all those things. And I was invited to hold the water prayer in the morning. And in that morning water prayer, I expressed, you know, that I felt like I'm learning, I'm being taught how to be a parent, you know, to really take responsibility, and also, you know, just how to walk in life, like and honor life as a ceremony. And then my next observation, I was pregnant,
Your next what?
And
Wow.
the next time I ovulated,
Okay.
the very next ovulation, I became pregnant. And then
Wow.
that was the last ceremony that I've been in until now. And now it's like all of the teachings that I've received through ceremony, I'm having to remember to apply that to my life, which is not always easy, and I forget sometimes. But yeah, it's just interesting how that marked a time of my life. And then I no longer sat with medicine, but I feel like all of this, giving birth and having babies and becoming a parent, becoming a mother is a big ceremony.
Yep. Yeah. It's interesting that you say that, because I feel like I haven't sat in ceremony for a long time, but the last lessons that I were very similar. Responsibility, sovereignty, taking back your power, and it was just like boom. And since then, it's just been like, okay, yeah, implement it into life. So interesting.
Yeah.
And then, so yeah, before that, were you kind of like were you on a speaking kind of journey? Where did the spark kind of begin for you, if there was one?
With which aspects of my journey?
Just, I guess, I like what you said about the ceremony, and I kind of just made me think, yeah, because life is a ceremony, but I guess,
Yeah. Okay. So I mean, I could definitely speak on that. So
yeah.
at that time, I had relationships with people, and then I guess through ceremony, I remembered how to. Um, some people say pray, some people say like set intentions. I just like remembered how to use words and know that my words will start manifesting my reality. And one of the prayers that I was putting out there was to, okay, so the prayers were to have a family, to have children, to grow as family, to have our own land, to build our own home, to be creative, to thrive, to be really connected with nature, like all of these things. And I started expressing what it was that I want to call in. And then, as I had like a few different relationships, and as each relationship I had, I would learn what I didn't want and what I did want. So I was like becoming more, having more clarity of what I'm asking for. And yeah, so that's where I was at.
So
So yeah.
that's amazing. So before you met Tiago, you already had a very clear idea of what it was that you were looking for. It's
Yeah,
amazing.
definitely.
And then what do you think, like, I guess as a woman, you kind of get to that age, right? But was there anything specific that was really calling you towards this kind of family lifestyle and the way that you described it?
Hmm. Um, yeah, I don't know how to answer that one. Like, creating a family has always been something that I've wanted. Like, I've like, it's something to do with my mom. I think my mom is very maternal. Um, and your family has just always been a really big part of our life, even though our family is actually a very small family. But yeah, I was always excited to become pregnant and have a baby.
Wow, I love that.
And yeah,
Mm.
and here I am. Yeah.
You and also I feel like, yeah, what you mentioned at the beginning, this like, this shift that's taking place at the moment. Do you do you feel at any point that you kind of like felt that coming in any way? Like maybe even just
No,
no.
no. Well, as in, like, like with what happens, like with the pandemic, for example, like
Yeah,
that kind of like global that's been happening.
yeah, I guess so. And then in a way, just like the awakening that's coming with that,
Well, I don't know a huge amount about it, but it was definitely resonating with me, the age of Aquarius.
Yes.
Astrologically, I really know like very like the surface level, but I was aware of that we're at the beginning of a big shift,
Mm-hmm.
in our consciousness, and we're evolving. It's happening, but we're right at the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Well, I feel like you're totally pioneering that in a way with what you're doing. So, yeah, I'd love to hear more about your birthing story. So,
Yeah.
2020.
Mhm. You ask me questions. It's easier if you ask me, and then I
Yeah.
can tell you.
So, firstly, I love that you told me that it was just you and Tiago, right? The
Yes,
first.
it was.
So,
Yeah, for
did
both babies, it was just the two of us.
wow. So, obviously,
Yeah.
after the first one, you've already done it. So, so and he was also aligned when you met him, as you were saying, you already had these visions of how you wanted it. Wow, amazing,
Very aligned. He's asking for the same things. Yeah.
amazing.
We land, thriving, build our home, learning, creativity.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
So
he's very aligned with birthing at home naturally, like full support in all decisions that I made.
amazing. So uh, yeah. So you basically both consciously decided that that's how you wanted it to be, right? Did you have like a doula and a midwife?
Oh, so let me tell you how it all went down. So I became pregnant, and yeah, I'll keep it short. But I became pregnant in London, and I was really excited. But actually, it was a very new relationship for Tiago and I, and so it was like a big shift that was happening for us. But I went to the doctor. I wasn't actually registered with the GP at the time, but I registered with the GP. I let them know I'm pregnant. They made appointments with the hospital. Like I went through the whole thing. I had the birthing book. Like I was going in for all the tests, the blood tests, everything. I was going to all of it. And I guess I was doing that because it was the first time, and that was just what you do, right? You let the doctors know, and then you go into the hospital and you just do it. You just go
Yeah.
for all the scans. And I get it because also like it was really exciting for me. It's a really exciting experience to be pregnant. And but I knew that I wanted to have a home birth. I knew that I knew already that I could give birth naturally. My mum's mum, so my Lola, she gave birth to my mother in a rice paddy field on her own. I mean, like,
Wow.
she had to work. She had to work till term because, like, so to her full pregnancy, because my Lola lived in a little village in the Philippines. Like she had to work. She wasn't
Wow.
choosing to work, but she went into labor, and her cousin ran to the village to try and find the village midwife. And before they came back, my Lola had already given birth to my mum. I never got to really speak to my Lola about this, but they're the little bits of information that I knew. And it was like that. It was like my Lola gave birth to all her children naturally. And yeah, I just had full knowing that I could do it. I knew like it was like quite a daunting like thought because I'd never done it before, but I knew that I could do it. So I was still connected to the hospital, but I was saying to them that I wanted to give birth at home. And at one point they were putting me into a high risk category because I have an overactive thyroid, or I had an overactive thyroid. So they were telling me you might not be able to give birth at home. You might have to give birth in the hospital. And even then, it was like I know what my rights are. If I choose to give birth at home, I'm within my legally, that's within my rights.
Uh-huh.
So I always kind of keep that in the side of my mind. And anyway, they gave me the all clear because I was really looking after my diet naturally. So my hormone levels were balancing out with my thyroid. And then I contacted the home birthing team and I said, okay, I would like a home birthing midwife because I'm going to give birth at home. And actually, by the grace of Creator, it actually worked out in my favor because the pandemic started 1 month before Zion was born. And I had a phone call from the home birth midwife. Her name's Gloria. And she was just like, I'm not able to send any midwife for you for your birth because we're not allowed to. We have to keep all the midwives in the hospital. She was saying the reason being is because they were short of staff, but also they were saying because of the pandemic, we need more ambulances to be available for people that have COVID. So we can't take the risk of other people, all of this stuff. So in that same phone call, she basically said, you're going to have to give birth in the hospital. And in that same sentence, I was like, you know what, it's all good. I'll just give her birth at home. And if I need you, I'll call you.
Wow.
And it's interesting because all it says a lot about how the more informed we are about what our rights are and what's possible, when we're speaking to these people that are in a place of authority, then they hear that we are speaking on the level of like I am informed, like I know what my rights are. I just had to say it. I didn't have to argue with her. She didn't give me anything. Like she didn't give me a hard time at all. She was just like, okay, you know where we are if you need us. And it was like that.
Wow.
And yeah, and I did have a doula. But because I was traveling in Brazil and then when I came back and then the whole pandemic stuff was going on, we didn't actually get to properly connect. I only met her once, but she was giving me some support via the telephone, like through my pregnancy, like a good sister would. And then at one point she wasn't able to be there for the labor because she had to take her children up north because of everything that was going on with the pandemic. She didn't want to be in the city. And so then I was like, okay, so Tiago and I, we just got our minds together, like, okay, so we're going to do it, the two of us. And if there's some friends that I feel like calling, then I will. And then just before I was coming to the labor, the doula actually got in touch with me. She was like, actually, I want to be there for you. I'm going to come down to be there for you. But by that point, because Tiago and I had already set our minds to it, and also because I hadn't really built a very close relationship with her because we didn't get to spend any time together, it just felt, I decided to not invite her into that space. So that's a little bit of the backstory of how, I came to home birth.
That's amazing. I love it.
In the city.
In the city. Yeah, I love what you said about the authority because it's like, when you're speaking to authority, but when you're speaking from your own authority, then you're meeting them on the same page, same level, same playing field, But
Yeah,
that's
that's
so
a good way of
cool.
putting it.
And I love it that it just happened like that. It was just like, no, you guys are going to do this alone.
Yeah, I know. I
Yeah.
know. It was like, I mean, we can talk about it more about the actual experience, but it just taught me so much. It taught me so much about,
Wow.
because I didn't have anybody, nobody was there directing me or trying to manage me. It was fully me on my own, and with the support of Tiago, he was just by my side, just like there was no doubts, there was no fear, total trust and knowing from both of us. Like we were fully in alignment with that, and
Mm.
yeah, like I said, I learned a lot. I learned a lot on both sides. I learned a lot on what my ability is, what we're made of, like the just fully trusting and knowing in the process of giving birth. But then also, I learned how having helping hands in that space is also really useful because, on a logistical level, on a practical level, it's a lot for me and Tiago to do it, just on our own. Like when the baby's born, there's a lot of like, logistics, making the beds, making the food, making the tea, making sure the mother and the baby are warm. There's things that we didn't have. We made it through it like perfectly. But I did learn that it can be really helpful to have, your
Mm.
sisters, your mother, your community around you, just like holding space if you.
Mm. Love that. Yeah, it's so interesting. I think the first time that to me it came that you can actually do it alone. Like it's amazing what you said about your grandmother. Is then I was watching Sense8, this TV series, and the woman, she just gives birth, just her. And I remember watching it thinking, no, is that real? Like, is that possible? Can that even happen? And then not long afterwards, I remember you telling me the story, and I was just like, wow, it's just so powerful. It's such a powerful thing, And obviously it's an experience as well.
And I feel like another thing that's really important for us is to be, like learning about our bodies, what's actually happening on a physiological level with fertility, with pregnancy, with labor. It's really, really fascinating. And the more that we learn about our bodies, the more we remember how intelligent we are. Like, uh, there's a whole cosmos within us. So that we're so intelligent, and giving birth, really, the body's doing it. Even at the pushing stage, the body is doing it. We only have to participate. And also
Wow.
it's also a big journey psychologically.
Mm.
I found that the breath was really, really important. And the more that I could put my mind to a side and be with the sensations and try, like, with every contraction, just try and meditate, just try and put the techniques that I've learned in life just to be, and the body's doing it.
Yeah,
Hold
yeah,
on.
yeah. I love that. So did you, and the pregnancy as well, that process and that journey, how was that for you? Did you have, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good question as well, because so, for example, for my first pregnancy, like I said, I was going for all of the scans, all of the tests. Everything
Yeah.
was very much about, you tell me how I'm doing, because
Wow.
I feel like in our culture we've lost touch of listening to ourselves and trusting our intuition, and just listening deeply, especially when a woman is pregnant with a baby. We have not been taught that we have the ability to communicate with our baby that's within our womb. So with the first pregnancy, like I did have that in my awareness. I was talking to her, I was connecting with her, I was listening. and the whole time I felt healthy, that I felt healthy all the way through. I had no reason that I felt to be worried, but yeah, I was still going for all of the tests and the
Yeah.
scans because that's just what's done. But then in my second pregnancy with Amaya, I didn't even register with the doctor. I didn't tell any hospital that so I did that differently, a little bit differently. I didn't go for any scans. Yeah.
Fair enough.
It was a I really I wanted to learn to put that into practice and to trust. I actually had one private scan right at the end, and even like ultrasound scans, there isn't a whole lot of research, of long-term research of the effect that it has on the fetus.
Yeah, I've heard about this.
And like, there was some little that I didn't really know much about it, but there was still something of I'm I don't know how comfortable I feel about the ultrasound scans, even from the little bit of information that I've been receiving. But when I was close to term, there were some things that were happening that I was having. I felt like I was having mild contractions, but I felt like it was too early. Tiago's father was sure that I had twins, and I was just like, you know what, let me just book in for one private scan. And I did that, and that was fine. But it's fine for me that I had that one scan.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I feel like I mean, I totally resonate with a lot of what you're saying, but it's amazing that you've had the lived experience of it. Because you're right, like we totally, what I find as well is like when it happens, there's this fear that comes around it, like, oh, you can't do that, like, oh, you're not seeing anyone, like, but you need to have someone there to. There's this whole funny narrative, and it's like, I don't know. I feel like for me, I probably will be hearing it even if no one's saying. you know, so funny, but it's good
Yeah.
that you stuck to what you really were feeling and believing, and trusting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it definitely helps to have someone by your side that is in alignment with that. It really, really helps because, a lot of my family members were not in alignment, with me having a home birth, you know. Yeah.
Wow, really? Because I was actually thinking about that as well. That is, yeah. But that's the thing, and then they're probably worried for you as well, and it's like you have to really just be like, no.
Yeah. Yeah. It was like that. For the first labor, I couldn't actually let some of my family members know that I'd gone into labor because I knew that they would be worried, and I just wanted to try and keep the frequency, as
Yes.
confident,
Yeah.
peaceful, and trusting as much as possible. And that's another reason why I ended up, birthing at home, and it was just the two of us because wasn't that many people that within my family that with and I say that, and I know that they love and care for me so much. They want the best for me, but there's just different perspectives.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's so funny, isn't it? This is the way. And also what you said about, I feel like that it must be such an empowering experience because, like you said, and you're learning more about how intelligent your body is. Because for so long we've been taught like we need to rely on these experts and this authority. And then to realize that
Yeah.
actually we are the authority.
It really is an amazing experience to give birth in the way that, yeah,
Wow.
yeah, it's amazing. I came out feeling really proud of myself.
Yeah, for sure.
And this is the thing, like, this is what we want for our mothers. This
Mm,
is what we want, you know, to come out and however
mm,
they do, even if people decide to give birth in the hospital, that I get that, you know, if people want to be closer to technology, if there really is an emergency, like I get you feel safer to do that. But we also want these people to come out feeling empowered and that they self-directed and they did it. You know, we want people to be coming out saying, I did that. I did it, you know.
yeah, totally. So during the pregnancy and say giving birth, maybe the first time, did you have moments of like fear that would come up? And how did you handle that? Or was it kind of like, okay.
No, that's a really good question. So with the fear part, so I read a book some years before, and in that book, it talks about it's the fear, tension, pain syndrome. So when there is fear, the body will tense up. And when the body is tense, that's when pain comes in. So I read about this and then throughout my pregnancy, I was like really, really mindful of not talking about pain. You know, I never ever once said I'm scared of the pain. I was really meticulous about the thoughts that I was having. I was, you know, just being really aware to not bring that into my language. And and then I think the closer I was coming to term being like a 40 weeks mark, like full gestation, I was definitely having butterflies. Like it was kind of like nerves of I didn't know what to expect. You know, it's like going into like a really big ceremony, and you know it's going to be a
Wow.
really big experience.
Yes.
So I had definitely had some anxiety, little bits of anxiety and nerves, but that's normal. That's really normal. And I remember when the first contraction started with Zayan, it was, yeah, those first couple of hours was like, oh my gosh, like, I don't know if I'm ready for this, you know? But I had no choice because
Yeah,
it was going to
yeah.
happen.
Yeah, I feel like naturally that's just gonna happen. I mean, I feel like sometimes it happens when I get sick. You know, sometimes you go into this
Hmm.
really with the pain, and then in my mind will just be like, oh, like what? And then it's like, no, it's fine. Yeah. So and so then the actual process of giving birth, it must have been such. I just feel like that bond between both of you as well. Like, wow. Um, but I remember you briefly saying
Yeah.
before that it was quite an enjoyable experience. So
Yeah. Yeah, when I look back at the videos that Tiago made, you know, he propped up the phone camera on the sofa, and we have like some footage of how it was. When I look back at it, it's amazing how we're so calm. We're
wow.
super, super calm. Even in the last contractions when she's born, Zion was born in a water birthing pool. That was my first birth. And we were just so calm. That's the best thing I can say. It was like just calm. My voice was calm. I was praying. It was very silent. You know, we didn't have any music on. It was just me and Tiago. It was just like that. Tiago was
Wow.
behind. Tiago was like, you know, as her head was being born, he was telling me what was happening. He caught her. It was just even the and then after, you know, getting out of the pool, just everything was just calm, 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 calm all
Wow.
the way through.
I feel
Yeah.
like
But
that. Yeah.
during the actual labor, like internally, my own experience, it didn't feel so calm, you know, because it's a lot that's going on psychologically, physically, spiritually. Like it's a really, really big experience. So it was really useful to have those recordings for me to look back and see it from another perspective as well.
Interesting, yeah.
Because a lot of it is psychological, during Zyron's labor was 27 hours, right, from the first contractions to when she was actually born. And like ceremonies, if it's like I went through lots of different waves of experience. Like it wasn't all like blissful and orgasmic. Some of it was just like that, like I really went to my depths, and that's part of it. That's part of the transformation. So
it's so true. It is like all ceremonies. Yeah.
and I think that's where the nerves, when you go into a ceremony, you kind of have like that nervous feeling because you know that there's work that's going to be done.
Wow, yes.
To be done.
Yes.
And I love that. I love that because that's where the biggest part of transformation happens, is that when we're really, really pushed to our edges and we come out of it, and we're like, wow, I went through that. I took myself through that.
But 27 hours, wow, it's quite long, hey? I mean, I don't know how much it is normally.
I think it varies. Yeah, it varies. But and it also it goes the way it needs to go. That was another thing for me. It's like like in life generally, I don't like people rushing me.
Yeah.
And definitely giving birth, like I didn't want anybody putting any pressure on me or my baby. Like, do not rush me. Nobody rush me.
Yeah.
So it took the time. I think that's kind of like an average time, It varies. Some labors can be faster, some labors can be days, and it is what it is. Yeah.
And also, I'm wondering, why did you decide not to have any music?
I made a playlist. I made various playlists on my Spotify. I had mantra. I had like music that I could dance to. Like I had all of these playlists, and I don't know. I think I played the music at one point and then turned it off, and then I don't know. Apparently, it's quite common. Apparently, it's quite common for people to, make playlists, but then in the end, never really use them.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, maybe it's kind of like it might adding more chaos to the, you know what I mean? Sometimes music does that.
Maybe. Yeah. I don't know. I loved the idea of having, some of my favorite songs to dance and move to, but maybe if I had, somebody who I'd worked with through my pregnancy, and I made the playlist and I sent it over to her, and then during the pregnancy, maybe she puts it on, and like, I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But Tiago did play the guitar, though. He played the guitar like during some point where he played, and we sang a little bit while I was in the water, So there was some music.
Okay, yeah. Nice. And so what was that? I mean, it must be so hard to describe in words, but like the feeling after it all happened.
Yeah, it takes some time. Like it takes many days to sort of in. Yeah, that's my own experience. Yeah, integration. I feel like there's definitely some techniques though that could be used, could be facilitated to help integrate that experience. Like there's one book that I've read, which is a great book. It's called Natural Birth in the Hospital. but she just gives really great tips of like birthing. And one of those tips that she talks about is if you have a doula or a birth worker that's working with you, for that person to come in a couple of days later and just do some reflections on what they saw during the labor, you know, what they witnessed, you know, in that dynamic between the mother and the father, you know, whatever up. And then it just gives that other layer of feeling seen, and yeah, it just gives another layer of being witnessed by another person. And that can help that integration.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And also to be about it, yeah.
And also to what?
Yeah. And also to be able to talk about from the mother's experience, you know, with the people that were there, which we didn't do, you know, we didn't really have. It's kind of like the babies were born and then it's just kind of, yeah, then life just keeps. So it takes a minute to process it all. I was journaling. I did do some journaling.
Yeah, nice.
In those first weeks. Yeah.
Well, transformation. And then, so your second birth, you decided again to just have you two.
Well, yes and no.
Yeah.
Like we wanted to get out of the city and be in more nature, so we came here to where we are, and Maya was actually born. I wasn't totally sure of how many weeks pregnant I was. It's still a little bit hazy. But at the time, I thought I had another couple of weeks until her labor would start. And she came earlier than what I expected. But we had plans for Tiago's mum and sister to come and be with us. Okay. And yeah, it just turned out that they didn't. And I think that it was just, that was the way it was supposed to be. Yeah. They don't speak like great English and I don't speak great Portuguese. So, but close, we've lived together, you know, for some time, and you know, it would have been in some ways amazing to have them with us. But it was just the way it was supposed to be. Yeah. And then it was just Tiago and
and that was because she came early.
She came a bit early, yeah. I think she came at 38 weeks. And that is, any earlier than that, a baby would be considered to be premature. Yes. But she came, and when she came, she was perfect. Yeah.
Love that. Oh. So how long was the labor with the second birth?
So contractions started. Okay, so hold on, let me think. Contractions started during the night, but it felt to me, I mean, they were, so the contractions started and they felt like quite strong period cramps.
Wow.
They were coming on like every 30 minutes. That was all through the night. So the contractions started during the middle of the night and they were about every 30 minutes. So, but it was interesting though, because Zion got into bed with me while that was happening. And then in the morning when they're just Braxton Hicks's, so it's just like it's like the practice contractions. But then I spoke to Tiago's mum and dad that morning. I called them to let them know maybe the labor's going to happen. But then Tiago and Zion went out for that morning to give me a bit of space to rest, and I didn't have any contractions. And then when they came back in the like midday, the contractions started again. But it was still like, oh, I don't know if this is I don't know if it's actually starting. And Tiago invited me to go and swim in it's a lake called Legown, which is like a 10-minute drive and then maybe like a 20-minute walk, and it's really beautiful. And at first I said to him, I was like, oh no, I don't want to go. I'm just gonna stay at home. And then he enticed me a little bit, and I was like, okay, let's go. And I'm really glad that I actually did go. And the contractions were coming, and we got there, and I swam in the water. And it's seriously super beautiful. It's like mountains everywhere and just beautiful water. It's like really pretty. And then I made an offering as well, because the contractions were coming on stronger and stronger. And actually, it was then when changing my swimming costume, I realized my mucus plug had come out. And so the mucus plug is it's a mucus plug that sits in the cervix.
Yeah.
And when the contractions start, the cervix starts to dilate and efface, and then that mucus plug releases, and that's a good sign that labor is basically on its way. And the mucus plug.
Is that the same as the like water breaking? Or
no, that's different.
wow.
No,
Okay.
it's like sometimes it will come out. It's like about a tablespoon of like this thick mucus, and it sits in the cervix, and it acts as like a protective layer from bacteria and things to going through while somebody's pregnant. And then the sun was setting, and then it was like, okay, let's start walking home. And those contractions were just coming on stronger and stronger and stronger. And as I was walking, it was interesting actually, because after I made that offering, like I'm in that offering, I asked from our ancestors, Tiago's and my ancestors, to be with us, to support us through the labor. And then as I was walking back to the car park, through it's just a really beautiful walk. We walk alongside the river, and it's just nature everywhere. It's green and lush and just like wild everywhere. And as I was walking, I had to stop to like go through the contractions. But it was one of the most connected that I had felt to my ancestors. Like I could really feel them walking with me. Like I could really feel that my Filipino side. Like I just felt them really present with me. And then we got home, and then some other things happened, and then Amaya was born at 10 p.m. So it was, I would say the labor was about 20 hours, 15 hours. That's hard to say, like from those first contractions.
Yeah.
It's really hard.
So what is the water break? Sorry, I wanted to ask you about that.
Go on.
The mucus plug and the water breaking, when does the water break thing happen afterwards? Or
it varies. So I think you're right. So it would be, the mucus plug would be released, but at both of my labors, like there was no specific time I knew that the waters were broken. I think I think we imagine, because that's what we see on films, is like this big gush of water, but that never happened. And oftentimes the water bag doesn't actually rupture, because it actually puts really good pressure on the cervix, so it helps the effacement and the dilation.
Oh, interesting, because I think I actually saw some, like sometimes does the water bag come out with the birth, like in place?
Sometimes, yes, I think that's called a caul birth, CAUL, which is apparently is like a really it's really good luck in a lot of cultures.
Oh, wow.
But sometimes that happens, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, interesting. And it's amazing. So how old is she now?
Amaya is 6 months.
Okay. Beauties.
6 months. Yeah.
So now you are fully stepping into motherhood.
Yeah, with 2. but I still feel like a baby. I don't really feel. I don't feel like a full adult in a lot of ways.
Wow.
I think it's like that though.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I am a baby. I'm a baby, like, learning how to be a mother. There's so much learning in motherhood.
Mm.
Like
Yeah.
relearning how to look after myself while also looking after like children and
Mm.
yeah, yeah. I heard that the matriarch, like when somebody fully reaches matriarch, is um I think this is right. Is actually when the children are no longer as reliant on the mother, so the woman has
Wow.
gone through, like that whole rite of passage of learning and growing, and then
Mm.
step into that like another phase of wisdom.
Yeah, so it's like it takes time to even, yeah, get to there.
Yeah.
Hmm. What do you feel like has been like the biggest change for you with having children?
That's a good question. I don't. Okay, one thing that's coming through is um, the biggest change. It's really hard to answer because it's so much growth, but
Yeah.
also being in a relationship with somebody and having children and moving country and experiencing so much. It's really challenging, and I think one of the biggest parts of my growth is to be able to sit in it being uncomfortable but still being fully committed to us growing together, because it's a commitment.
Yeah, man. Wow, that's so powerful. It is a commitment, totally. And it is challenging and uncomfortable at times.
Yeah. Yeah. But for me, I mean, this might be an ideology of mine.
Yeah.
But I do feel
Hmm.
that it's important that our children have both the masculine and the feminine around, to have the mother and the father, and even better when the mother and the father are united and, always working on their friendship and their intimacy
Mm-hmm.
and
Family.
yeah, it's it's a path that I am choosing to walk because that's what feels that's what feels true to me,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, it's like sometimes it can be really, really challenging,
Mm. Yeah,
but I do.
yeah. I feel obviously I'm in a relationship as well, and I just feel like it's a lot of hard work, and I just feel like people don't really talk about this. You know what I mean? And I think
Yeah,
that actually this is the way it is. It's not like it's supposed to be any other way.
yeah, yeah, and it's just a
Mm.
lot of self work, isn't it? It's like
Yes. Yeah.
we have to keep on reminding ourselves to take responsibility for ourselves. Like my own reactions, I have to take responsibility for my self care. I have to
Mm.
prioritize that.
Mm.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
journey. Yeah, it's a real journey.
Yeah, I feel like at one point I just kind of thought maybe if I'm doing the work, there's gonna be it's gonna just be smooth, a bit more smooth sailing in the relationship. But the reality is very different, and I don't know if it will be like that.
Yes, yeah. Some things we just have to accept about the other person as well,
Yeah.
and yeah. But I feel like that's where astrology can be really useful. Like I've never done it, but I would like to do it to have our
Yeah.
birth charts read down, to see where those points of tension are, and where those points of strength are, and how to work with those different elements that we're bringing into the relationship.
But
Because, for example, I'm Virgo Sun and Virgo Mercury, and Tiago is Scorpio Sun and Scorpio Mercury, and it can feel very intense. Like the way we communicate with each other is like super intense at times. You know, so it's just interesting, like the different flavors that we bring into the relationship.
yeah, I mean, but I love what you said though. Getting used to sitting through that, but still being committed. And I feel like that's just a reflection of it all. There's also the birth. It's, you know, the pain that comes through just life, you know, and just not running away from it, you know.
Yes. Yeah, you're right. And I think my younger self would like, and still today that I have to bring attention to that and awareness to that, because when things are difficult, there is definitely a part of me that is like the easiest thing for me to do would be to just go in the other direction, you know?
Yeah. Yes.
Not easy, obviously.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
fastest, the quickest solution that I would come to, because
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
oh no, this is uncomfortable, let me get out of it.
Yes.
But no,
Yes. Yeah, I
it's
feel
where,
that.
yeah, but that's where the best work is. As long as obviously we're in alignment with some of the main things that we're asking for in life, and there's love and respect and friendship, you know, as long as we're aligning with the important
Yeah.
things, the important aspects, then all of the
Yeah.
other things can just be worked through. There's when children come in, you know, it's like we've got babies together. It's such an amazing bond that Tiago and I will always have, that we have, that we're fully committed to raising these children.
Wow. 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 That's, again, it's just like so powerful. You know? Yeah. Life.
Yeah, I love it.
So, just, are there like any things that you are very conscious of like how you would like to bring up your children? I
Yeah,
feel like this is quite a
yeah.
hot topic. You know?
Well, there's there are some things like up until now. So Zion is almost 3. So in these past 3 years, what I have learned is that right from the beginning, I always knew that the more we treat our children, the more we interact with our children in a way that we know that they are made of intelligence, the more that they have that space to, you know, to shine their intelligence. And yeah, like going through these stages with Zion particularly, you know, because she's learning how to communicate, and also there's a lot of levels that she's not able to communicate yet. So like, there's frustrations and tantrums, and you know, we're always navigating of how to communicate with each other. I'm learning more and more that these children, it's important that they are seen and that they're heard, and that they know that they're loved, and that they know that they are supported, and you know, they're embraced, you know. And that's something that I've had to learn along the way with her. So she's been a really big teacher for me. Yeah, so there's some of the things that they're teaching me.
That's amazing. And also, like, yeah, I feel like imagine having that as a child. Just feel like it's quite rare, you know?
Yeah, yeah, I think that's because we're having to learn, like our generations, we
Exactly.
might not have had parents that were, you know, as aware.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so we're having to learn a lot of things again, to
Yes.
then to them. For sure, like for sure, I will have my own limitations,
Yeah.
you know, but it's just a learning process. But it's that goes back to that thing of this shift in consciousness and the rise
Mm.
of our evolution.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And this is exactly part of it, because you know, the more tools that we can give to our children, then the better equipped they're kind of going to be. And we can also only kind of like show them what we know as well. So it's like the more we
Yeah,
do the work, it's
yeah,
going to help everyone. It's going to help all of us, you know?
yeah. And then also the more that we are forgiving and gracious to our own limitations,
Oh,
you
yeah,
know,
100%. Yeah.
but we recognize them, then
Yes.
that's passed on to them as well, you know.
That's so true, the way we are with ourselves. Because, yeah, because, yeah, it's mad. It's like this huge magnifying glass or light on every single action, you know? And that's the responsibility.
Yes, I hear you. I hear you exactly. Yeah, it's we set the examples because
Mm.
they're constantly learning from us. It's amazing
Mm.
how, you know, at the moment with Diane and I were going through a phase where she's raising her voice at me and she's saying no, no to certain things.
Wow.
And I recognize that's because sometimes I do that to her, you know, when I don't want her to do something. Sometimes, like my voice, I never shout and scream at her, but like I definitely raise my voice. And she's just reflecting that back to me. And I'm having to review my approach
Wow.
and like how I communicate with her. And
Yeah,
yeah, she's just,
powerful.
yeah,
Yeah, because I've heard about the soft parenting, which I think is kind of taking the approach where you're not shouting basically, and it's just, but obviously it's a challenge in itself.
yeah, exactly. There's
Yeah.
one There was something that I heard on Instagram on a post. A man who he's a psychologist, a child psychologist. He has 6 children himself, and this really resonated with me. He said the best advice that I could give you are 2 words, and that is firm and kindness. So it's like having because we have to give boundaries. We have to set boundaries. We have to show boundaries, but also like with compassion and kindness. So
Mm.
that's one thing that I'm bringing
Mm.
into my awareness in my parenting, my ever evolving parenting skills.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. I mean, I feel that's just in relationships in general. The boundaries are just so big, and I keep seeing that other meme on Instagram that's like, your boundary doesn't need to be like an electric fence. You know, it can just be like a soft announcement. It's so interesting.
Mhm.
But then, yeah, it's just learning that we've got so much to learn, I guess, so much to grow into. Yeah.
I know. I love it. I fully embrace it. I feel that that is the reason that we're here, you know, to fully experience all of everything, all the dynamics,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
downs, the light, the dark, and
Mm.
yeah, knowing also what we are capable of, knowing that we are able to manifest by just keeping on coming back to alignment with what we're asking for.
Mm. Yeah, man, this human experience. So you are also training to become a doula, right? Yourself.
Yeah, yeah. I would I say that I am a doula now. Um, I say that because I've given birth. Yeah, I've given birth. I've been through postpartum twice. I feel like I've learned a lot. And then I've taken on this year-long course, and it's amazing. I'm learning with a teacher that I have a lot of respect for. and she's very wise. She's an elder, and she's teaching me about many things, many aspects about birth. It's the academics, but also the wisdom keeping, then holistic practice and homeopathy. And I'm halfway through the course, and already everything that I've learned so far with my own experience and the teachings, I feel confident that I am able to, I have a lot to offer to support people if they feel called to ever work with me.
Amazing.
By the end of the course, I will have done, I reckon I'm counting my hours, but by the end of the course, I would have done around 500 hours of study. And I will create my own birth education course. So, and yeah, I'm available. Let's see, because my children are still quite young, but I am available to support. I love birth. So, I love talking about it. I love resonating with other people about it. So I'm available. I'm open to however I can connect with other people.
I love that. That's so cool. It's just one of those things that I feel like it's not really spoken about much, and there's a lot of unknown with it, So interesting.
Yeah.
So and then also I feel like there's so much like of how painful it is, I don't know, when you see it in films and stuff or wherever you see it. And I'm just like, what is that about? Is it supposed to be like that? Or is there something we're missing,
Yeah, I think it's definitely something for us to pay attention to, and it's actually not as complicated as it seems, because
Wow, okay.
in the hospital setting, it's just about management. It's about managing the woman. It's like
Yeah.
moms are so fussy, always wanting to do something, feeling like they have to do something. And in that, there's a lot of interventions. And the interventions from the very beginning of interventions in a woman's, even through the experience of pregnancy, but let's talk about labor. There's a cascade of interventions that create more pain, more fear, more exhaustion, and then it keeps on leading on to more and more and more interventions. And yeah, there's so much to it, but essentially, a woman needs to give birth like a mammal, feeling safe, feeling protected, feeling, in a dark, warm, comfortable space. She needs to be able to feel like she can move. She like physically to go into any
Yeah.
position that she needs. She needs to be able to follow her instincts. This is a big part of it. And giving birth in a lot of settings in the hospital isn't designed for that. There'll be a bed in the middle of the room where she's expected to put on a gown as though she's a patient. She's not a patient because she's not sick. She's giving birth, and then
Wow.
she's laid down on her back. That, like, physiologically,
Wow.
it goes against gravity. There's pressure on the inferior vena cava, so her blood pressure lowers. Like, all sorts of things will happen, can happen. Some people feel that they're some people some people's relationship to the sensations of labor, they feel like they need to have synthetic hormones to help speed up the labor, or they feel like they need to have an epidural, for example, so they don't feel the pains. But that leads on to just more complications, and yeah, when
Yeah.
really, she just needs to be left alone and just to go through it, because there's endorphins, there's all these amazing hormones, there's a whole orchestra of hormones that are happening that actually help
Wow.
her experience. And actually, like, the
Wow.
relationship with the pain is actually manageable. You know, by the time you're given birth as well, it's like you forget about it. Think about also that women give birth, no matter how it is, actually, and a lot of times we'll still get pregnant and have more babies. So, like, it can't be that bad. We keep, like, that's why we're here. Like, it's, and so if we know that, then we can just actually elevate the woman and create a space where she can have the most, like, peaceful, natural birth possible. And yeah, it goes back to that thing of just, it's her coming out of it, knowing that she did it. And it's, yeah, it doesn't need to be a horror show and a bloodbath. Like, it's, there's so many videos on Instagram.
Yeah.
You only have, and there's so many empowering videos, and I think that's really important. The more that we see these positive
Yeah.
experiences, or it can be.
Yeah, totally. I've been purposefully making sure that I'm looking at these experiences and also getting away from the just like, I don't know, there's this weird thing to be like, do you know what I mean? It's weird.
Yeah.
And it's like, wait, what the fudge? That's not at all. Like, that's the most amazing experience, you know? Yeah. It's so funny. But now it's definitely, I've got to a
And the
point.
body bounces back as well.
Yes, true. Yeah, now I'm just getting used to it. I'm just like, okay, cool. But I love what you said. There's a whole orchestra of endorphins. Is that what you said? Working in your, yeah, wow. Oh, a
Yeah. Yeah. Even, yeah, there's yeah, and when the hormones through labor can naturally unfold, the better. But there's a whole reward system that's going on a physiological level, even breastfeeding. You know, it's oxytocin is released when we make love.
Yeah.
Oxytocin is released with birth. Oxytocin is released when we, even for men, the levels of oxytocin are really high when they are when they're the caregivers of babies, and it's all a chemical reward system to keep us looking after the babies and keep us procreating. You know, it's just it's design. We're designed to live.
I love that. It's the design. It's just the design.
So cool. It's really
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah. Yes. So do you have, yeah, I feel like it's just such an interesting period of time that we're in now, because we just feel like we're just relearning so much from all of our indoctrination, really, you know. And this is just such a big part of it. And even like you're saying with the commitment and, you know, the family, I feel like, you know, this is how it works. It's the family, then it's the society, then it, you know, I don't know if you've seen that little model. Like, this is the core. There's just
Definitely.
so much to it.
Someone said somewhere sometime that, I think it was the Nazis. They had, don't fact check me on this one because I might have it wrong, but basically, fundamentally, a psychologist was saying the best way to control a society is through birth.
Oh my days. Wow. Oh my word. Yes. Yeah, because it's,
Because it shapes us.
yeah, and
It
it's so
shapes
much,
us. It
yeah.
shapes. Yeah.
Yeah, because first of all, like you're saying, from the parents, the mother, first of all, there's so much, when you're not in your authority, then it will be shaped by someone else. So there's this like submission to this outside thing, you know, and then in a way that's also coming to the child, and then the whole, yeah, and I've been learning about common law and then the birth certificate, and all of this is the same thing, exactly what you said. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's almost like happens so obviously, but also so covertly that we don't even know that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And because people, like you say, you just accept it, that's what you do, you just go to the doctor, and then you just, you know what I mean, you just give away your authority.
It's because it's cultural norm. Yeah.
Literally,
Yeah.
literally, it's cultural norm. Wow, yeah.
Yeah. And this goes back to what I was saying about
Powerful, man.
over the past years of what's been happening, especially when it comes in relation to our health and our physical bodies and our rights. I feel more and more people are really questioning what's going on, what's happening.
Yeah, totally. I mean, 100%. And this past few years, for sure, it's just like, hang on a minute, wait. I think that it's probably still more people to realize, like, wait, it's the same thing with the authority. Like, what, you're telling me that I need to do this, and then
Yeah. Yeah. And you're telling me that I don't have a choice about it as well.
yeah. And yeah, it's
Yeah.
totally relatable to the birth. It's like, hang on a minute, what? Anyway,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, it's okay. It's okay. It's there. Karen.
Yeah, man. I mean, this is it. This is the, like I love to say, this is the Great Awakening. This is it, you know. And so much of it, and I love that's how you say it. This is how you started this podcast. Is the responsibility, and so much that you were learning that from just being in a relationship and having children, you know. And it's also connected as well. It's amazing with the society, with the government, with everything. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, and we're basically realizing what of a crazy system that we've been living in, you know?
Yeah, and it's a patriarchal system
Yes.
as well. And that's where it's like, the family now it's time, that's the most important thing is family.
Yes. Now
And
it's
then move.
time.
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
And it's so powerful as well. And I feel like this is what's happening at the moment. And just what I've been hearing is this is it, the movement of people stepping into their authority in these very practical ways for like home birthing, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Growing our own food,
Yes.
learning about herbal medicine,
It's fascinating.
ways
And
that we can the ways we can be sovereign.
say that again.
I think it cut out. I was saying just ways in which we can be sovereign.
Yeah, exactly. And but like very practical ways, you know, not just saying it.
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
yeah, it's amazing. I mean, I feel like it's great because this is what we're here for. This is why those of us who feel the calling, who know, you know, who've been doing the work, this is literally what we're here for. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that's
Yeah,
it.
and I feel some people are ready.
Yes. No, I was going to say
So
something
I
similar.
feel the signal.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know,
Yeah.
and that's all good. That is all good.
Yeah, totally. Some people are ready. And then it's so interesting because some people might be thinking, what? Like, and a lot of it is like going back to the ancient ways. So to some people, it might seem very, what's the word? Like outdated, or it might not make sense. But actually, I mean, these are the organic ways. We've been living in that outdated way, you know?
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly.
So do you have any words that you would like to share for mothers to be who might be considering having home births? Maybe, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, during my first pregnancy, one of the best pieces of advice that I heard, and actually it wasn't through my own grandmothers because I, both of my grandmothers had passed and maybe it wasn't their experience. It was another woman. She was telling me that her grandmother, she's very much connected to her Mexican roots. And when she was pregnant, her grandmothers just said to her about her labor that was coming up, "You're going to do it, like it's going to be fine." And I just thought about that, and I was like, what a difference that makes when we hear our grandmother's voices. It might not be the most recent generations, but if we connect to like further back, think about what they would say to us. Hear our grandmothers speak. Like it's
Yeah.
gonna happen. You're going to give birth and you're going to be fine. And it was like, yeah, it's true. And we can call on them as well.
Love that.
And also another word would be selective of who you invite into your birthing space. It's all about the people that are around.
Oh, it's so well behaved the whole time, bless him.
Say that again.
So well behaved this whole time. Mm.
Coming to that time.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I totally feel that. Be selective. Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you. Yeah, it was amazing to talk and finally to speak to you about this. And it's such an important thing moving forwards, I think, for all of us. And obviously, it's something that I really feel connected to as well. And I'm sure this is going to keep rising as well. It's going to be more and more people who are coming to recognize,
Most definitely. Yeah. I'm really grateful for this conversation. I'm really grateful for what you're doing on your podcast. It's really lovely to see that you're having these conversations because they inspire you. And I have respect for that and appreciation.
Yeah, no, but thank you. So true. Just follow the
Yeah.
inspiration.
Yeah. Keep doing it. I love it.
So, what I like to ask people as well, final question is, what does freedom mean to you?
Freedom means to me being my full authentic self, even when my voice shakes. Yeah, yeah, just being my authentic self and celebrating life, really celebrating the abundance and blessings of life.
Yes, I love that. Even when my voice shakes. Yeah, man. Yes. Own
Yeah.
it. Own it. Yeah. Amazing. So I will put your Instagram and the link below, and if you have any other, it's so cool. I'm looking forward to your course. I feel like that's so cool that you're doing that. So great.
Thank you. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah, it's in the making.
Mm. So do you have any final words that you would like to share?
Um, No, I'm happy. I'm happy. Yeah, I'm really grateful.
Okay, amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you as well. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Or actually, if anybody would like to talk to me about birth, anyone wants to connect with me, if anyone has any questions or would like to know more, I'm available, like I really love talking about this and learning from each other. So I'm open for connection.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you, babe.
Yeah, thank you.
Lots of love.
Yeah, lots of love. Thank you so much for listening to this episode and to this podcast. We hope that you can gain many insights through the art of listening. If you haven't already, we would love it if you can follow us on YouTube, on Instagram, and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts if that feels right for you. We've also just launched our first online course, Awakening 101, a ninja's guide to navigating your spiritual awakening, which is led by me and is offered via donation. So if you feel called to that, then please dive in. It's available via our website. Thank you.